Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of the Rewatch podcast presented by the Terrible Video Gamers Club. I'm your host, Tyler Schatz, who also does not run longer than 5 minutes when not connected to a power cord. Joining me for the fine recording session are one, Stephen Howard.
Who would hug a hedgehog even if it stabbed him with all his quills?
Amanda Howard.
I might not run faster if connected to something, but I am starting to like the theme song enough to add to a running playlist.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah, I was going to mention that as well later. We both have that on our running playlist now, so I'm running 5Ks and having that song just blaring in the... Sorry.
But do you do it for the whole 5 kilometers? Because it doesn't count otherwise.
I could do it for the whole 5 kilometers if you want. Bring it on.
Mr. Josh Cox is here as well.
Coming to you live from Tokyo 3 Loop Line number 7.
And last but certainly never ever least, one Gary Delaney.
This show has become a hedgehog's dilemma. The closer I get to understanding what the hell's going on, the more I just get stabbed with confusion and just,
Wow,
what
Gary!
the hell is going on?
Look at Gary with the metaphors.
That was wonderful.
Just I don't know if I'm shaking my head in disgust or shaking my head in just shock and amazement from Gary.
I'm impressed.
I didn't bring any poetry to compare against on this show. I'm sorry I wasn't prepared.
The only reason I got that analogy was because they literally, you talked about previously, they don't beat you over the head with things in this show. They beat you over the head with this hedgehog's analogy. Hedgehog.
Oh yeah, hedgehog or a fox.
What the fox said.
I don't know what they're talking about dilemma. You know, social media is full of people clutching hedgehogs very close to them, so I think it can be done.
Right.
I have not personally done this, though. I feel like we should make that happen.
Yeah, I just need to master Shinji's dead eye thing that he does, just the dead eye stare off into nothingness. That would be intimidating as hell. Like you're in the middle of a meeting and you're just doing that dead eye stare. Someone would look at you and don't call on him. Don't even think about him. Pretend he's not there.
Or they think you're having a seizure and they maybe call medical attention. Call for medical attention.
One way or another, you're not working.
We have dived off the deep end here, and we haven't even started talking about the episode yet. So speaking of the episode, I'm going to actually pitch this over to Josh. Josh is going to be doing our episode covering parts of the podcast here, just so I can reduce my spoiler attempts there for myself there. So go ahead, Josh. What episode are we going to cover here first?
First, we are going to discuss Episode 3, The Silent Phone, or A Transfer. Shinji begins school at Tokyo 3 and meets classmates Toji Suzuhara, Kensuke Ida, and Hikari Horaki. Toji resents Shinji because his sister was badly injured in Shinji's first fight against the angel. Another angel appears, and Shinji must defeat it. Shinji is pushed to his mental limit during the battle, going berserk during the last seconds, engaging the angel in close combat and savagely disabling it. Afterwards, he is devastated by the emotions he experienced during the battle. Toji, witnessing the toll Shinji's life as a pilot puts on him, decides to let go of his resentment.
All right. So, Toji, Shinji is our main protagonist, and then who is this?
So, quick recap. Shinji is, our main protagonist. Toji is kind of the jock character that we get introduced to. Kensuke is the more nerdy, squirrely kid in class that Toji is friends with. And then Hikari is the class president lady who kind of is chastising both Kensuke and Toji for being late to class and all these other things. Just typical preppy
class
girl.
president stuff. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
I didn't remember that being a task of our class president.
Oh, Amanda, the more anime you watch, you will realize the class president and apparently in Japan, if anime is to go by it, is the most powerful position on the face of this fucking planet.
Right.
Sounds like a tough position.
She probably reports directly to NERV in this universe, yeah.
To kind of just start here, I don't really have all that much to. I mean, A lot of my notes just felt like me just writing down more boilerplate stuff again for the episode. I didn't really have any questions to kind of ask the group here. But it looks like Gary already has a question to ask us, so we're just going to go ahead and throw it over to him to start off.
I still wholeheartedly stand as the one person in this group who doesn't like the intro. I had to look because you were like, oh, well, this is a normal intro for like anime. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go look and get my frame of reference for how long other things are. So this intro song is 1.5 minutes. Pokemon from 2000 is 1 minute and in English. But also when I looked on Netflix, super effing confused because I thought Pokemon was dubbed. It apparently was always in English. TMNT Classic is 1 minute from
That is not
1987.
an anime.
Super Mario Super Show is 1 minute in English of 1990.
What are we
I'm just comparing it to other cartoons that have intro songs.
Painful.
I don't understand your genre, Steven. That's the problem. Is that what you're saying?
Go look up the intro songs for Bleach. Go
Just
look up the intro
because your
songs for
cousin jumps off a
Naruto.
cliff doesn't mean you have to. Just be better. That's all
I
I'm
mean,
saying.
depends on whether the Evangelion catches you on the way down. And if I've seen enough animes, if I jump off a cliff, it means I'm going to either get superpowers on the way down by discovering my inner self, or a friend will discover their inner self and save me.
In your strict niche understanding, it Pokemon is not an anime. Then Pokemon is a
I think
U.S.
Pokemon's
cartoon.
kind of an anime, kind of.
I thought it was, but I don't know. Watching Steven's
While I was-
dawning horror as he realizes that Gary's research has not in other animes, just been other cartoon shows, was worth it. Thank you for that, President Gary. I appreciated it.
Oh my gosh, he doesn't know all these other animes? This is totally normal. It's like, no. Like that's
It's not that you don't know these other animes, it's that you looked up a whole bunch of cartoons and was like, so for this anime. It's like,
well,
so
I
for
also
the Powerpuff
understand
Girl
that
anime,
not only anime, but also in timeline chronologically for I guess I grouped in with other cartoons.
Mid to late 90s cartoons, animated shows that would be shown on TV.
And I understand over time, like how children's television. I don't know if this is children's television. It probably isn't.
No.
It's very teen.
It's pretty deep for it.
How long an intro song is relative to the changing times and what the kids now like to watch. But anyway, it was just a curiosity because I think the song is too long. It's like I think at about 1 minute, maybe 50, like a minute, I think it'd be a good wrap for a song, and then it goes into like another chorus of shit, and I just like it's just also. While I was doing all this, I didn't look at the screen when listening to the intro song. It is much better if you don't look at the screen. It is a very fun song. The screen is very fucking distracting.
Gary, is the song you're watching, is it in English or is it dubbed?
There is no version of that song that's in English.
Okay, I was just
the
curious.
The intro song is
listening.
always in Japanese.
Nope.
And so it's and even reading the lyrics, like it looks like kind of a fever dream. And so I compared it to, as Steven said, not anime cartoons. Like the Pokemon song is a banger and it's only in English. The TMNT song in English, banger. Super Mario Super Show, very niche, but still a banger. I don't feel like this song like is something I'm gonna sing every day, but maybe they do. Maybe they sing this song as they're walking down the street.
Conspiracy theory. By the end of this podcast, Gary will have the words memorized and will be singing this song. We are going to convert him.
I will not learn Japanese for this. I will sing it in English and I will sing it off key.
And then that can be our theme song.
Anyway,
I'll redo the podcast song, and it's just Gary singing this song off key.
Steven is so angry that he just stopped paying attention. He's like
just-
on another computer,
He's
like
compiling
doing
a list.
something else.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm compiling a list of reasons to assassinate Gary.
He's got a constant list for that. He's always updating it.
It's true.
Like I
Amanda
said,
knows.
though, like Steven didn't even like look scornful or annoyed or like just judging. It was horror that Gary was daring to compare these to other cartoons that Gary would have watched as a child. They were the wrong ones.
Mhm.
Now you know your
Okay,
friend.
also, just a rabbit hole of silliness. Pokemon is never been in Japanese, or was it? Because I looked on Netflix, there's no way to get Japanese as a spoken or
I wouldn't say
subtitle
not know
language.
that.
I wouldn't say Netflix is probably the greatest guide to whether or not there's a Japanese version of Pokemon, especially if
Yeah.
you're watching the American version of Netflix.
Who knows? You can get it in German, Spanish, Italian, but no, yeah. Also, I just the realization that like Netflix is worldwide and like unlike most DVDs that I'm used to that are only in English, Spanish, and maybe like French, you got like 500 different languages. Anyway, that was all I had. I guess that was my point, was that I just a minute and a half. That was what I learned, a minute and a half.
How long is the Game of Thrones intro?
Oh.
It's gotta be at least a minute and a half, 2 minutes. It feels
At
like.
least a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Oh.
That's all instrumental, and I don't have to
Uh-huh,
pretend that I'm
uh-huh,
translating it.
Uh-huh.
And there's just shit going on. It changes. I don't know. This is maybe other people know. Does the intro ever change?
I don't believe so.
Okay. I award you no points then. That was all I had. Back to you,
Rude.
Tyler.
All right. I'm gonna throw this over then to Steven there to maybe kick us off with some points here. Like I said, I just have a bunch of random bullet points written down from watching the show.
Well, that's kind of how I'm doing it too. One of the things that I first noticed, and first thing in the show, is the dead eyes, the fish eyes that I mentioned for Shinji when he is training in the simulator with the target, center mass, fire, target, center mass, fire, and he's just absolutely rote routine. And it struck me as two things. One, how is no one in this control center going, guys, we got to get him out of here. He's not learning shit. Like this is not helping him right now. He's going to get out in the battlefield. He's not going to know what he's doing. And I apologize for cussing so much this episode. But also, Shinji's not in a good space of mind right now. He was forced in that last battle. He was put as a hero, and then he is not in a good space of mind.
Steven, nothing about this show makes me think that they care about physical health of their fucking operators, let alone mental health. You're talking about a mental health issue, and mental health was only like considered an actual issue in the last like 10 years. Before that, it was just like quit whining and get the F back to work.
So two things. Oh, sorry.
You can go.
Number one, mental health has been a issue since like I think the 70s or something. So it was here at this time. But secondly, if you are training like an elite mech warrior fighter dude, or even an average warrior fighter dude, like it's not only like you're not only looking out for their mental health at this point, you need to make sure they're actually taking in the training. If I bring one of you guys to San Diego and undergo the SEALs training, and by hour 3 your eyes are glazed over and you're half dead because it's fucking psychotic training, no, the rest of that there's not going to help you. You're not going to learn anything. You're not going to be a SEAL by the time you're done. You're not going to probably be able to walk by the time you're done. So what they're doing here is not just injuring their pilot's psyche, which you're right, they probably don't care about, but they're not making a soldier. They are making a defective weapon.
Your defective weapon.
Your face is a defective weapon.
Just gonna shake my head in utter disappointment. Yeah, that's definitely something I wrote down too. And notice I just kind of wrote it down as like robotic training programming. There, just he's just repeating those words over and over and over, and you can definitely tell that something is not right with him sitting in that seat for as long as he has been.
Yeah, it's just striking to me because I mean, NERV is supposed to be this elite military organization, and even if they don't care about the well-being of the kid, they assumedly care that he's not not doing the training well, so he's not going to be a good fighter.
And it's definitely, I think, more just it's a little bit Top Gun, like keep sending him back up. You know, he'll get the pattern eventually and snap out of it. And it's to me, it feels a little bit. It's definitely a militaristic organization, and so it to me calls to mind the military movies Top Gun, Full Metal Jacket, where Pyle is just losing his mind, and everyone just he has that dead-eyed stare. I mean, there's a lot of references and allusions that to me kind of call back to that sort of aspect. And yeah, uh, it's still not good, but yeah, I would agree that in mid '90s, even though mental health was definitely a thing, it was definitely not a concern of military professionals at that point. So I could see them just trying to just push through it. That's their only thing, especially with Gendo running the whole show and really ordering what's going on. He's not going to care. Why would he? Why did he start caring now?
Yeah, it's. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, did you have more stuff to keep going with, Steven?
Sure, yeah. I guess the main section of this is Shinji learning those two kids, two new friends, maybe. We'll see if they'll become friends. But two new kids in his class. One is a tough guy, and the other is a nerdy nerd, like a weird nerd. And it is interesting to see the very kid dynamics that they go through this entire show. So I wrote down things like I guess one other thing, but they walk in and they're sitting in the classroom, and this is supposed to be some top secret. He's not supposed. No one's supposed to know he's a pilot. And what's the first thing that happens? One of the kids messages, "Do you fly that thing?" And he's like, "Yes." All the kids just go, "Ah!" And I just wrote down, "The kids always know. Don't even try to hide it. The kids always know." But one of the other things there is Ray is for some reason in that class. I mean, we haven't seen too much about Ray in any other capacity whatsoever, but Ray is apparently in the class. Sorry, Gary.
Oh, I have some other points, but I add to your point you have right now, and I'll circle back afterwards. And that is, did he really not realize that there was a two-sided coin of fame, that like people are gonna think it's real cool and the girls are gonna love him, but also that like people are gonna be jealous. People like I don't know. I guess he's a how old 14-year-old who doesn't understand that kids are evil. So anyway, Amanda.
I just liked how the other kids were like, well, last week we all got attacked, and this kid transfers in, and I'm like, yeah, the kids aren't stupid. No one's going to be moving to this wonderful town with attacks from things unless, like, of course they were gonna. As soon as they pointed that out, I was like, yeah, they should have anticipated. They think that was gonna be top secret. That wasn't gonna be top secret. Go ahead, Steven.
Does it cover how much motion of people there are in this world? Like
It talks about that everyone is leaving Tokyo 3, I think in the last episode, but I guess
anyone showing up would be questionable. The fact that it's a kid would be. Well, I don't know if it's specifically determined that everyone knows that it's small children that are running these giant mechs. It may be based on the fact that you would guess that a small child would be the one and not like, oh, there's an adult. His parents probably run it. Anyway, Steven.
Plasticity of his brain is no. I was going to respond to your comment about Shinji telling everyone maybe for the fame. I don't think he does. I think Shinji just tells everyone because he's absolutely honest and has zero freaking social skills. He was asked a question. He answered the question. He had no expectation of what was going to happen, either with everyone freaking out about him or getting punched in the freaking face. I mean, he had no idea what was coming. Jason.
Yeah, no, it's hard to say if it's necessarily like a fame-seeking thing or just a sort of clueless thing, because we don't really know that he's necessarily had a fantastic, he's not been parented very well. From what we learned from the previous episodes, Gendo has been gone for 3 years. We don't know where his mother is, and it sounds like basically teachers kind of raised him as best they could for the last little while. So, I mean, in terms of interacting with fellow children, it's not necessarily going to be a strong suit. Gary?
Circling back a little bit to you guys talked about the training montage, and I had a question, which was, what the F does it say in the title card after the training montage? Because it's not the episode title card, but there's just like a title card in Japanese right after the training montage. I swear
I know what you're talking about, but I don't know what it says. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm looking for it now. We'll circle back. One thing I did want to mention too about the question Gary mentioned of like how many people are in this world area. We do actually learn a little bit about the events of Second Impact. We hear as Shinji is reading his text messages on his computer and trying to determine if he should answer if he's the pilot. The teacher is just blabbing on in the background like, oh, yes, we had a giant meteor impacted Antarctica and half of the planet died. And now all these thousands of animals are now gone. But we're doing better now thanks to the work of your moms and dads. And so we're starting to learn a little bit about Second Impact there. So it's a bit Thanos style of like 50% of the world is just gone after a single event. And so they're rebuilding now. And we have this Tokyo 3 Exodus here, which who knows exactly what sort of size this place is, given that it's just a fortress city designed to be some sort of weird protection area. Steven?
All right. First of all, question to Gary. Gary, have we had a conspiracy theory yet?
Amanda might have had one. Did you have a full conspiracy
Amanda, did
theory?
you have one yet? You did?
I said one. I don't know if it really counts.
Okay, that's fine. It's fine. Conspiracy theory number 2.
Before you start, okay,
God.
Jason, 3 minutes, 15 seconds into the Netflix. 3 minutes, 15 seconds. Okay, Steven, conspiracies.
Conspiracy theory number 2. This is actually a Avengers tie-in universe where Thanos has snapped away half of the people on the planet.
Ooh.
You
Alternate
heard
ending.
me. You heard me.
The audience cannot hear, but I am just shaking my head in disgust at that thought.
Everyone was kind of shaking their head. So
Immediately, I see all you guys start shaking your head.
Conspiracy theory number 3. Kids in the 90s who speak English do not know where Antarctica is. Because as somebody who's listening and watching subtitles, in the subtitles, which is, we assume, a direct translation from Japanese, it said the meteor hit Antarctica. If you listen in English, it said the meteor hit the South Pole. So
did it really?
I'm assuming that they changed it to South Pole because they assume no one knows where the hell Antarctica is.
Yeah. American kids are pretty stupid.
Interesting.
What do you mean? It's just that big landmass that's at the bottom of every map that you see. It's like huge.
Right?
It's a
Whereas at least
continent
the
that
South
no
Pole
one
is
lives
easy.
on.
It's a nice little striped pole. It definitely exists.
Is that where Santa Claus is? Santa Claus lives there.
No, Santa Claus's brother, Bob, lives at the South Pole.
Bob.
Santa Claus is the North Pole. Bob's at the South.
Not anymore. He doesn't. He got hit by an impact, guys. Keep up.
Got
Keep
wiped out.
Bob got wiped out. Yep.
Bob's son is rebuilding.
Son of Bob.
Also, something else, not a conspiracy theory that I noticed in this episode, which is this show's from 1995. The crazy lady, I will never ever learn any of these people's names, I'm sorry, says that all kids should have phones. And obviously it's a cell phone. And all I can think was like, in in 1995 they assume all 14-year-old children have cell phones, or in the future of 1995?
It's Japan. They're way ahead of us
They
as it
are.
is.
They are more technologically.
Anyway, that just literally like stung me. I was like, I didn't get a phone until like 2004, and so this was like 9 years before that, and obviously in a futuristic world, but still, like,
I guess that is something that I should note for just the time period that this was made in. This was made in the 90s. This was during the rising Japan time when everyone was kind of in the tech industry. People were afraid that Japan was going to overtake the United States as the number one economic power in the world. Everyone was afraid of their, what is it, Surbatsu, Kabatsu. They have basically military and military private industry combinations. They had government investing, all that sort of stuff. And so everyone during this time period really thought that Japan would be the technological enlightenment society of the world. So that is where probably a lot of that comes from.
I just noticed that it was like notable enough that I was like, that's kind of weird, but I guess yeah, to say Japan's much cooler than us, so kids
I
have
do
cell
feel like
phones.
it also could be an aspect of the fact that he is technically a military agent and needs to be able to be called back at any given time to suddenly pilot a giant mecha and save the day. So it could be a bit of that, because looking it up, backing it up slightly, the translated bit at 3:15 apparently is just the title card. It's just for whatever reason the subtitles don't put it there. I don't know. I found a copy of the script and saw it translated there, and it just says like, "Yep, episode 3, a transfer." Okay, but shortly after that, I'm at this subtitle here where they say it's a necessity. So I got him his cell phone a while ago. So the necessity aspect makes me think like, yeah, it's okay. It's something that they need him to have as part of NERV duties.
Anyway, that was interesting. I wouldn't trust a cell phone to a 14-year-old today, let alone. God, how many years ago was that?
Honestly, I didn't
20 years
question it
ago?
at first just because they're so common these days. It
Mm.
didn't occur to me to question it right away until you're talking about it. But even then, yeah, I would assume that since he's now their top pilot, basically, that he needs to be summoned when necessary. I thought it was more interesting that she was like, he hasn't gotten a single phone call or text. And I was like, 2 weeks is not a lot of time to really make new friends when you're going through all this.
That is a
Unless
good
you're
point.
a
Actually,
slut.
that assume yes. But that she assumes that everyone else has cell phones and all that sort of stuff as well. So it's not just him as a military agent, and that if that is what she is implying there. I would say though that this is just the Vietnam rule of, hey, if you're sending kids to die at that age, they should probably have a couple more rights than they normally have. So who knows?
And for additional context, a reminder that the show is set in the far off future of 2015. So maybe they're just forward thinking and they actually were able to envision that by 2015, 14-year-olds would be all having cell phones. Wow.
It's more accurate than the
worst.
other show I saw set in 2015, so.
Now I'm curious, which one was that?
I'm thinking of the one of the Back to the Future version with the 3D Jaws and everything.
Oh, sure.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say
I'm
Back to
still
the
mad
Future
about
2?
flying cars.
One of the other things that is constantly shows, and we haven't actually touched on this yet, but constantly shows Shinji with his Walkman and his earphones in with his Walkman, constantly on 2 different tracks, 25 and 26.
Ooh, Steven,
I
good
think
eyes.
I think that's in the next episode, but I did have that question of like, what is he listening to? Because I don't have any audio coming through on those tracks. Or is it a secret that you learn later?
You don't have any audio coming through on those tracks?
Like
Really?
we don't hear his song.
Yeah, we do. In the what was it? Either the last episode we heard it.
Oh, I just assumed it was the background music.
No, in episode number 2, he's listening to it.
Yeah, I
in
just
bed.
assumed that was the background music. I didn't assume that was his music.
That's his music.
Oh, well, I thought it would be more obvious.
It's definitely
I'll
faint.
I
flip
was
it
slow.
on.
It's presented in the way that like you're kind of just hearing it bleeding out from his headphones. You're not hearing it like fill the scene properly. So yeah, it is. If you turned up the volume and listened real hard, you could probably get a glimpse of it. But I mean, I haven't taken the time to do that. I guess I don't know if there's
I
any
was gonna say,
necessary secrets there.
I wasn't watching these on my primary viewing apparatus, so I didn't get the full experience.
Poor Gary.
I know, just slumming it with on a 22-inch monitor rather than 7.1 and 85-inch television. So yes.
Before we moved on too far from this here too, they do talk about the hedgehog dilemma, which I thought was a very interesting concept that they brought up there. Basically, the gist of it is that two hedgehogs can't ever really get close to one another without fear of poking each other. They can't ever really get close to anything without fear of poking the other thing with their spines on their backs and everything. So I thought that was a very interesting kind of topic that was brought up.
I googled it. Apparently, the hedgehog dilemma, sometimes the porcupine dilemma, is a metaphor for challenges humans have with intimacy, which is really doesn't make sense in this context.
I don't think intimacy as in two people making out or anything like that. Intimacy can be used for something else, slightly a downgrade from that, Gary.
I only accept just super hardcore intimacy.
People willing to speak to you on friendly terms, Gary, counts as it.
All right.
You say that, but Amanda has sent me 3 pictures of a goddamn hedgehog in this time frame.
3? I've definitely at least at 5.
Oh, I've missed a few apparently.
Well, just be careful, everyone. If Gary mentions being intimate with you, just run.
Or just mention that you're a hedgehog. It's not good for him.
Porcupine. Mention you're a porcupine.
Man.
Porcupines made more sense to me. At first, I was like, I had to like Google because I was like, hedgehogs is what I'm thinking of, right? The really cute little animal. But I've never picked one up.
Red
Rumo's real fast is blue, like
collects rings.
collects rings.
Has a friend,
Loves chili dogs.
Right.
Loves chili dogs.
has a friend named Miles Prowler.
That might be a deep cut. I don't get that one.
Is it Prowler or Prower?
I thought it was Prowler, but Prowl.
I think the joke is
It's
Miles Prower.
Yeah,
So yes, it's Miles Tails Prower.
Prowler.
Those geniuses at Sega, I tell you. Can't believe they lost to Nintendo. Mario. What sort of joke is that? Nothing.
Mario.
All right.
All right. Back to the show we go. Oh,
Yeah, one last thing here on the kids being around. They do have that. I don't even want to call it a fight. Shinji gets punched in the face twice by what's his name? Sorry,
Koji Suzuhara.
I was going to say Suzuhara, and I was right about that.
Taking the hard road.
Yeah, damn right. But he gets punched in the face twice. And I have note for my honor, because he couldn't live with himself if he didn't punch this kid in the face because his sister got injured, and it's just like very 14-year-old logic going on right there, and very logic doused in maybe something that Americans aren't. This is actually going to sound like a deep burn on the United States, and I don't actually mean it to be, but it maybe not as familiar to the people in the United States with the culture of such honor. Like your honor demands this sort of thing, and I mean, you hear jokes about it with "for my honor" for like say Avatar: The Last Airbender or something like that, but honor is a real thing over there, and it's if you're slighted, you're gonna be in for a little bit of a time, especially if you're a 14-year-old macho kid who has to show the world how cool you are.
And I personally didn't see it as even like a very like a Japanese concept. It was more just like I took it almost like as the masculinity side of it, like of just like, oh well, you hurt my kid sister, so now I get to beat you up because that's just how we enact revenge here. Is we get even through physical violence. Yeah.
Solve
Gary?
all problems with violence. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, not to dig too much into to forgive for this guy, but he also maybe is scarred by the fact of like his sister being hurt and no one in the family having enough time to care for her, and so it's on him, and so it's probably emotionally fraught to like go back to school after dealing with like a medical emergency like that.
Mm.
I forgive him. He's just
I'm glad you
he's
forgave him.
communicating his emotions as the only way he knows how.
Sir, 14-year-old boy is notoriously not good at expressing emotions well. Though
Oh,
in
I-
response, the first punch comes in defense of the sister, and the second punch comes in response to Shinji saying, "I don't pilot that thing because I want to," which
And he
just
gets punched
pisses him off
again.
more. And then he goes and
Right?
gets punched again. Yeah, with Shinji not even trying to defend himself, he just takes the punch and gets laid out in the schoolyard. So, yeah, it's honor is a fun thing, I guess.
For my honor.
for sure. I don't know if I should call the monster out or if I leave that terminology to Gary, because I can only imagine Gary's got a colorful way to describe the monster, the angel that shows up that Shinji decides to has to fight.
I didn't even make a colorful comment. It was just some weird monster with tentacles.
Jeez, I figured you were
Yeah.
gonna go with something like a giant flying penis tentacle angel or something like that, penis shaped or something. I'm disappointed, Gary.
There was other things going on in that episode, so I wasn't as focused on the monster.
Okay, we'll let this one pass this time.
So, okay, I'll note that I need to figure out good names for all the monsters. I assume there's new monsters because they're going to want something original to show next week. You can't just fight the same Goombas over and over again.
I do like that. And I don't know if this, like, I just thought it was a strange phrase. The progressive knife was armed. Like, they talked, I think, like, it was Shinji had mentioned that he has, like, a knife that vibrates or something like that. Then I instantly went in my mind to it's not vibranium. In Knights of the Old, well, there is vibranium, sorry. But in Knights of the Old Republic, there are, like, swords that have a vibrating tendency to them that helps deflect against lightsabers. From the first game, I remember that because that's what you had to use before you got your first lightsaber.
The vibro blades and the vibro swords.
That's what it was.
Yep.
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 But I was just then it's just like, okay, progressive knife. So does that mean it's like a forward thinking knife? It's like here to help change the culture and stuff like that too, or just a weird terminology? Yes, thanks, Gary. I know that's almost like Nick level bad joke right there.
Yeah, you acknowledged it. Oh,
so Amanda, did you have anything for the show that you wanted to talk about?
This time I learned after watching our last episodes that I cannot watch these with Steven, or I cannot watch them with Steven and look at him. So this time we watched the episodes and I kept my face off of him because he's very carefully not trying to give anything away from me, but I know him too well, and therefore I almost keep asking questions like, are we going to find out what's going on here, or are they going to explain this? And then I start to look at him and I know by him being still or something that answers my question. So I am learning that most of the time it will explain it to me. I just have to be patient and wait. I did think it was pretty interesting that when they were talking about Shinji's just blank eyes, how he's just going through this, when they made that comment of he does whatever he's told, that's how he makes life easier. That comment hit pretty hard because I was like, wow, like that's true. That's his coping mechanism right now. That's how he's handling it.
Yeah, the show does a very good job of like bringing all these coping mechanisms that people actually do and having it be brought into the show. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely like really relatable there too. Of just like some days you just go on autopilot to just make it through the day there. So
Right? Other than smile and stay like happy, he's just sitting there. He's doing everything they say. And it reminded me was it the very first episode when they weren't sure Shinji was gonna cooperate with them, and they were like, just get Rei, and they like said, Rei, we need you in the thing, and she just says yes. And I remember watching that first episode and being like, wow, just like that. And now I'm like, oh look, it only took one fight, and now we got Shinji doing the same thing. Yeah, you throw a 14-year-old into that, that's probably gonna be their reaction afterwards. How would you not be screwed up after that?
and then too to add on top of that, the fact that like whatever happens to the mech kind of his brain is feeling that it's happening to his body as well then too.
Yeah, it happens to them. That is insane. And granted, I did have that interesting note about they only have 1 minute at full capacity, 5 minutes. Is that when they're unplugged? You only can do 5 minutes?
Yep.
Or-
So they have essentially they call it an umbilical cable. So whenever you're connected to that, you're basically getting full power, and then once that becomes disconnected, you have 5 minutes of low gain power or 1 minute of full power.
So I mean, as far as they're technologically in the great age of 2015 with cell phones for 14-year-olds, we do not, however, have wireless EVA technology quite yet.
Okay.
Moving on, I did make a note just watching that skyscrapers lowering them to protect them is really cool, but I'm really curious, was this city like made because they knew that these forces would come here? Like, how did these forces know to come here, or did the forces come here because the EVAs were being made here, so they made all this stuff to protect them? Just the amount of manpower and resources to put into lifting a skyscraper in and out of the ground is amazing anyway.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it was episode 2 that they discussed a little bit more about it, where they kind of mentioned that this city is a fortress built to counter the angels. So like the idea of the geofront and the skyscrapers that can descend down, it definitely feels like it was intentionally put there to kind of keep people safe while intentional battles were happening right above it. But as to how they are getting the angels to show up there,
Yeah, like, I mean, do they have some kind of beacon that's telling them, hey, go here? Or, I don't know, I'm reminded of Independence Day when the word got out and they knew where to go. Here's the weapon that can destroy you. Go ahead, Gary.
I think we asked the question in the last episode, how do these mechs work? Because and obviously the umbilical cord explained a lot more than what we knew in the last episode. Also, I assume the skyscrapers were built in the last 15 years since the last attack, which crazy math. This show is based in 2015 imaginary time, and the asteroid hit in 2000 imaginary time. So technically the last attack was when the asteroid hit. I'm sure this will all be explained, and I'm sure that it was the mothership that crashed or something.
It'll be scenario 93 or whatever she said before.
right. Yeah.
93B.
Yeah, this show's crazy. That's all. Also, it didn't seem like there was like, you talked about the skyscrapers moving up. It didn't seem like there was like safety walls. Sometimes it looked like you were like in the middle of a lobby and just like the whole floor moved, and I was like, what happens if somebody gets pinched?
Well, my other wonder is, like, they made these skyscrapers to do that, like, and maybe I'm not being safe enough here, but like they still evacuated everyone. So clearly you shouldn't keep the people in the skyscrapers. So they just lower the skyscrapers to protect them from having to rebuild the building. Apparently you don't seem able to protect them with the people inside, or maybe they just evacuate them as an extra precaution. Although that
and
didn't
there's no
stop them
bathrooms.
it didn't stop them from losing 2 school kids.
And yeah, there's apparently no bathrooms in the shelter. And they don't guard the doors when they go into shelter mode.
That's my big thing, yeah.
They
JC.
don't guard the doors. There's no locking doors, even if they just lock one way. Like nothing.
That was one thing I noticed in the subtitles was that the Kinsuke notes, classic news blackout after the emergency system and everybody's quarantined. And there's they're watching this CRT TV, and it's apparently says like something about like residents need to stay within the resident blocks until the evacuation is lifted. So it sounds like they basically go to like a group apartment and then like just shelter in the basement, for lack of a better word, and then their whole building is lowered, and they should stay there apparently. But yeah, we don't really hear a lot about it. Like, how do you get from an upside down building to the outside world at that point? That part isn't really made super clear, especially for a couple 14-year-olds to just like, oh yeah, let's go outside, and then they just do. So it's a little weird.
Yeah, I mean A+ architecture and design, but I do have questions about it.
Okay.
And the thing I wrote was I did admire what's her name? His handler.
Masato.
Ikari?
Sato,
Oh, yeah.
thank you. When she realized that there were two kids out there and what to do, like as soon as I saw them out there, I was like, oh, this is gonna be his inspiration, blah blah blah. He's gonna save them. But Misato, I admire her quick thinking to be like, how I feel like anyone else would have been like, what are they doing out there? Oh my gosh! But like they would have just moved on because like there's nothing you would have to write them off. There's nothing you can do. They shouldn't have been out there. She had quick thinking to be like, let them in the cockpit. Like that's how we can save them right now. And I thought that was right thinking on her feet. Like
Mhm.
obviously everyone else was like, you're not authorized, but I thought it was fast thinking. It solved a problem. I thought it was great. She was not given credit for that. Go ahead, Tyler.
There is a life lesson to take out of this, though. You can't allow citizens to enter the entry plug. Just remember that. Go ahead, JC.
The act of like we had previously only seen Masato basically living in her apartment, just being kind of a wreck. So it was good to kind of see her this episode just really taking charge and kind of showing that yes, she belongs in this high echelon secret society military thing, and kind of showing that she can walk the walk as well.
I think that's most of my notes.
Okay. JC, what did you have for the episode that we haven't covered yet?
Not much here. We kind of discuss most of it. Kind of the last big thing is once they do get brought into that entry plug, they kind of get to watch Shinji do his job, for lack of a better word. And with the power running out, Shinji still, instead of going back to base, loses it and just lets out these blood-curdling screams and just charges the angel with his progressive knife. And yeah, Kinsuke and Toji just sit there and basically watch him freaking out. And props to the voice talent on this show, who just it's terrifying to listen to those screams. But yeah, Steven?
So I actually had a note about that as well, and my note was that Shinji goes psycho on the angel, and has 2 for 2 kills while psycho.
Okay, anatomy question. Both monsters are quote unquote angels. So there's just different breeds of angels? Like they're not a universal monster?
We're
Who
gonna
knows?
follow the Pacific Rim logic here, where each monster that comes out of the hole is different from the one before it. So they're mutated for their environment or their purpose.
It's not the TMNT logic where the ooze attacked certain monsters and turned each individual monster into a different, larger, evil monster.
Correct.
The turtles and the rats and the... I don't even know. I looked at this freaking monster again to figure out something offensive to call it, and it's just like... It's an enigma of weird shapes that somebody plastered together. It's not even anything fun. Yeah, whatever. Steven?
One more thing about the Shinji going psycho. it should be noted too that he has fought two Evangelion, or I'm sorry, I keep calling them Evangelions. He has fought in the Evangelion twice with two angels, and each time I made the joke about 2 for 2 while Psycho, but each time has pushed either him or we don't know what exactly happened the first time into going berserk, absolutely nuts. So the psychological strain of fighting these angels on a 14-year-old kid is pretty heavy.
And yeah, Toji and Kinsuke, who were in there, even recognized that pretty quickly. So the episode even ends with Toji talking to Kinsuke, worried about Shinji, saying like, "Hey, should we go talk to him and apologize?" And Kinsuke basically is like, "Yeah, you should be apologizing." So it gives him Shinji's number, and that's kind of where we leave off with that.
Yeah, I guess to note as well, he hadn't been at school for 3 days at that point.
Yep.
So
Yep.
wasn't injured, but has not been back to school.
In 2015, how many days a week do kids go to school?
Depends on it whether the world's ending or not.
And
I
what
was gonna
country
say, I
you're
feel like
in.
you just go to school 7 days a week. Like, just got to repopulate the world. Got to get you smart. Got to get you
Oh.
making babies soon.
Oh boy. You and me, we're gonna make the baby.
Okay, that was all.
That's all you.
The
That's all
last
you
thing
had?
on my
Oh, sorry. Go
I
ahead,
was
Casey.
sorry. I was gonna say the last thing that I had, I think, was just kind of a question to the group. Like, does the hedgehog's dilemma ring true to you? Do you think that something that kind of follows through your life, and do you think you would that a 14-year-old you would have a different answer? Because it's definitely one of those things that I notice myself not necessarily getting super close to people very easily. So I could see myself in Shinji's situation as a loner teenager being in that sort of situation and finding myself not easily trusting others, especially after showing up there for my father, who has then abandoned me again. Steven?
I think it's a difficult question, right? Because there is no such real thing as a hedgehog when you're talking about a person. We're all very complicated. We're all very different. And I think one of the major things that I'm thinking about right now is you can be kind of prickly on the outside, if you will. You could be a Gary, and you could still have friends like we have on this podcast right now.
He waits until I'm muted and taking a sip to drop that bullshit.
I was gonna say, friends is always a strong word when it comes to Gary.
Ugh.
But the point being is just that you can be prickly on the outside, and I've met people who are very prickly on the outside, and that they can also have prickly friends. But I think that it could also very much lead to conflict. I'm not exactly sure that it would lead to them not socializing, but it could lead to a lot of conflict. But again, everyone's incredibly different, incredibly unique. So that is not a one for all. Gary?
We're all snowflakes.
And Steven is incredibly wrong. Sorry, Tyler, I interrupted you. What'd you say?
Explain.
I was just saying, and we're all little snowflakes, all perfect individual snowflakes.
Yes, perfect snowflakes. I would say that I think the hedgehog, whatever, I've already forgotten the name of it, dilemma is, I think, would ring true in my youth. Like, just not wanting to put yourself out there because, you realize that, you don't realize until you get older that everyone is an awkward teenager. They're just faking that they belong, or they're, insulating themselves as best they can. But also in Shinji's, like, in this situation, he's a new kid at a new school. He's dealing with emotional turmoil, in this case, quote unquote, at home. Outside of school, he's dealing with a lot of emotional turmoil. And I think he doesn't want to let people in because, as it's very apparent in this episode and the next episode, like, no one knows what it's like to be a pilot of these things, and they assume it's just like being a fucking badass. Sorry, I'm swearing more. But they don't realize that, like, it does a lot of psychological and physical damage to the person driving it. It's not a you don't come out of it winning. Steven?
I would liken it to, and I have a lot of problems with this movie before I go on, but I would liken it to American Sniper, where everyone thinks, oh, it'd be so cool to be a sniper and to go out into the field and do all this cool stuff out there in the military, blah, blah, blah. And then it shows, yeah, you come home and you have severe psychological problems stemming from that sort of thing. There are multiple other issues with the book and with the movie that I have, but I think that is a good point. You idealize the things that you don't understand that kind of look cool to you, and you don't understand the psychological strain that it puts on you.
Boo
Also,
books.
Second thing, real quick, Gary's 100% right that everyone was just faking it to make it in high school, and I would conjecture that we still all fake it to make it today.
Pretty much. I
All right.
always joke that I fake it every day at work of like, oh, well, you've been doing this job for how many years? You're the professional, you're the adult. And I was like, nope, I'm still the same stupid kid I was when I was 18. I just hide it a little better.
You realize you have adult responsibilities now on top of your stupid 18-year-old self to take care of.
Yes. Fake it till you make it.
Yep. All right, so I think that probably covers us for episode 3 here, unless Gary still has more to keep discussing.
Not a conjecture-worthy point. I just I thought it was weird that they showed boy butt crack at the urinal. I mean, they show girl butts and they show girl boobs, but I was not prepared for dude butt crack. And I was just like, I don't why? Like, you can't just show two people with pants up. You got to show some crack on them. I just not necessary. Steven has an opinion on this. Steven, what do you think about butt cracks?
Double point on this. Number one, we've already seen Shinji's butt. Number two, we also in the very next episode see basically a 14-year-old girl in just like very revealing underwear. So this show is not shy about showing us things that we probably don't want to see.
I guess you do see the main character, but it was just like a secondary character getting butt crack.
Because we discussed it earlier, the concept of, was this made for kids? TVMA is what it currently has as a rating on the Netflix thing. So yeah, there is for nudity and smoking. So yeah, you get both of those. But yeah, it was Toji's butt crack that he's referring to in the urinal scene, just to reflect. He rides his pants low like a typical 14-year-old boy. So.
Which makes me ask, does your pants hang low? Does it wobble to the flow?
That is all I have, Tyler. We can go to episode 4.
Sure. We'll just ignore Steven there and just move right on to episode 4 there.
Episode 4, Rain After Running Away, or Hedgehog's Dilemma. Overstressed from being made an Evangelion pilot, the previous fight with the Angel, and fighting with Masato, Shinji runs away from home, soon encountering Kensuke in a field. Shinji is soon recaptured by NERV and reluctantly accepts to resume piloting EVA Unit 01, but Masato states that if he cannot have the right attitude, then he should quit being a pilot. She forces his resignation, and after saying goodbye to his classmates, Shinji prepares to leave Tokyo 3 by train. However, at the last minute, both Shinji and Masato have an epiphany that gives them a deeper understanding of each other. Shinji does not board his train to leave Tokyo 3 and decides to stay. Masato welcomes him back. Tyler, start us off.
I'm going to call this out. It is very annoying there. Every outdoor nature scene, you can hear, I think there's the cicadas making that noise. It is absolutely annoying there because it's like, I get it. You guys are trying to depict an outdoor scene here, but maybe turn that volume down a bit, or maybe mix in some other sounds every once in a while too. But that is just a constant noise throughout the outdoor parts of the episode, and it drives me crazy. Amanda.
I noticed that too, and it started at first, and honestly, the bugs around here have been so bad that for a second I thought it was here. And it took me a little bit to realize it was the show, and then I was like, God, that's loud. Don't they even make a comment about the cicadas, or is that in my head? Okay, because they made
Mhm.
that comment, and I was like, "Oh, I mean, I'm not a bug expert. Maybe it's a different kind of bug." I don't know. I'm kind of. It did set the tone though. Like you clearly knew they were outside, and it was, while not exactly peaceful, it was the different environment from being inside. I don't know. I'm mixed feelings on it. Go ahead, Gary.
Do you think just some choices in how they mix the show in general to like be very like not have a mixed audio to have very like poignant like, oh, we need bugs, so there's cicadas. I pointed out at a different point when he's freaking out, I think it's a little further on, that there's this trippy noise, and even on my like less than optimal, like you can tell it's trippy, it gets louder, gets quieter, it goes from the left channel to the right channel, like, and it's just like, holy crap, like this is great. Like it definitely distracts the viewer and be like, this guy's going effing crazy. JC.
Yeah, I personally like the sound mix. I mean, the cicadas are definitely ever present for most of this episode. I don't actually. I was trying to think, and I hoped to try and make the time to watch it again with this in mind, but I don't know that there's any actual music in this entire episode outside of what we hear Shinji listening to through his earphones. I think the entire soundtrack might just be the cicadas and the other ambient noises of train tracks, landscapes, and then his earphones. But yeah, they do reference the cicadas. Kinsuke at one point says, "I like night because cicadas don't make loud noises." Although I remember that it was quiet and I liked it. The number of them has been growing in the recent years. So he's noticing that like these cicadas are growing, and I don't know if that's necessarily a reference to what we learned last episode, that thousands of animals and insects have disappeared after second impact, and now they're just unchecked, just overpopulating, and that's a cause, or what? Steven?
I do think I agree with you. I was just thinking about it. I don't believe there's any music in this besides Shinji's earphones, Walkman, I should say. But also on the cicadas, I think it gives a. If you guys ever been on the East Coast where they have those massive cicada swarms out there, they can get really loud, really distracting, and I think it adds to, because at one point Shinji has a legitimate panic attack. He is walking, and I have seen this, or I've had sort of panic attack before, where you're just sitting there and suddenly everything's too much, and the cicadas really drive it in because they're ever present, they're everywhere, and you can't escape them, and it just drills into you and causes that panic attack, and that's what I think. I think it's instrumental in bringing Shinji to that point of getting to the panic attack there. So, Gary.
I just was curious, like, did anyone else notice that during the panic attack, like the audio was jumping from left to right channels, and like it was
Watched on TV.
watch that scene, it's pretty harsh with left and right channels because it jumps back and forth. Also, I don't know, like, is the cicadas just to show that it's outdoors, like, or in, because at no other point are they really outdoors. They're in like Mega City 1 most of these episodes. They're like, oh, well, we're in a place not surrounded by concrete. There's gonna be animals. We're in nature. Let's make nature sounds. Anyway, that's my theory. JC?
Yeah. One, I will definitely be giving a re-listen to the episode with headphones proper. I had one earpiece in whenever I was rewatching the episode both times, just happenstance. But yeah, for the cicadas, I like the idea that it was put there just kind of be like this constant thing that Shinji almost is trying to escape this Tokyo 3 area to get away from all of his responsibilities, and even out in the countryside, he can't find peace. There's this constant drilling in the back of his mind that the cicadas are giving him, where he's just not able to be free and not able to just relax and take time for his own thoughts. Steven?
I want to echo and amplify that exact sentiment in that I think the cicadas do a great job of showing that Shinji can't find peace anywhere. Because if you were just to show a kid, like, look at the scenes where he walks through, it's gorgeous. Rivers, you have terraced farms, he walks through a sunflower field. If you were just watching this without cicadas, you'd be going, this is absolutely gorgeous. This is fantastic. He's got to be so relaxed. and you just have the cicadas going the entire time. Just like, yeah, there is that. There is that extra there that is not allowing him to escape, not to enjoy all this. So, yeah.
All right. Amanda, it looks like Gary. Do you have a question?
You guys just skipped to like the cicadas, and I feel like everyone missed the most. Okay.
I specifically called that out as just an annoyance for me while watching the
Oh.
episode.
I'll let Amanda go. I had some other notes about the movie scene and some other things, but I'll let Amanda go.
I did make a note on this one. I know we already talked about the theme song, but I did also write just that I'm catching more stuff from the theme song every time I watch it. But the end of the theme song, like you see an actual smiling picture of Shinji, and I'm like, that's awesome. Are we actually gonna see that? Because I don't think we've seen that yet. I'm
Yeah,
hoping. It's
that's
giving me
awesome.
hope.
Will be great.
And then his little travel when he just gets on the train and goes all day. At first, I thought he was like leaving in town and going else. Did he just like go in circles around the city all day long? Then, like at first, it just showed him going on the train. I just thought he was taking it as far away he could, and then he's going through some fields and blah blah blah. Like I thought this guy was like traveling far away, and then you realize he's still in Tokyo 3. Like he just wandered around the city all day, which honestly is probably more hits a little deeper just for what mental stage he's at right now.
I was
I
actually
did.
going to ask, is he losing time or is he blacking out on the train? Like when I watched it, I was wondering if he blacked out on the train. Like just like lost track of time and just like just sat on the train and never got off because he just was in like a coma or whatever, seizure coma or something.
I just
I
couldn't
guess-
listen to the same 2 tracks over and over again like he's doing.
I guess I didn't see it as him blacking out. I just saw him just zoning out is what he's doing. So he's not losing consciousness by any means, but he's just not there either. I also did for a split. I had that same exact thing, Amanda, of God damn, is he going just a long time to go absolutely nowhere? Because then he meets up with eventually one of his friends, and I'm sitting there just going, "Oh, this is ridiculous. How long have you been gone? How many fields have you walked through? And you just meet one of your classmates? Oh, come on now."
I mean, it was beautiful. You saw all these scenes of gorgeous scenery and stuff like that. Like that's why I just assumed he was traveling. But this kind of makes more sense because he's not been gone for days yet. It's like I think the same day that he's just been wandering around in zombie mode. When he comes back and oh shoot, don't tell me your name. Don't tell me your name. I will remember it. Misato.
Hey.
I'm gonna get there. When she's telling him off, is he smiling? Is that like the first smiles we get from him? Because she's telling him off? I'll take it. I will take whatever we can get. But I was like, I thought he was just gonna sit there and do his dead thing of like, yes ma'am, yes ma'am. But he's kind of smirking a little bit, and I was like, okay, this is good. This is a spark. This is a hope of something here. Go ahead, Steven.
I have a question for the group on that specific point. And I'll add in a little bit more context to my question by saying later on, he is also upset basically at not being scolded by Masato when he gets brought back. And he said, well, he's talking to Masato and he's basically saying, "Oh, you don't care that I ran off? Well, why would you? You're not family." So he's upset that she's not upset at him for running away. And it seems like that's kind of one of the points through the episode is him wanting to feel wanted and wanting to feel needed by the people around him and him wanting them to show that sort of expression. But then I also thought his smile was really creepy in that first portion. So my question is, was he suffering a mental break at that time, or was that more of the wanting to be wanted and he was just happy that she was yelling at him because that was more of that it's not parasocial, but a social relationship that he would have.
Yeah, I could see that read on it for sure, where it's more like if, especially what we know of his home life already growing up, like if someone's yelling at you, they're at least paying attention to you, and that's caring, and that's all he knows, really. He doesn't know of what a healthy family relationship looks like in the first place to then base other relationships in his life off of. But then also he has the line, something about, she says that telling him that following orders is going to get him killed, and he says, so what? That's not the point. Or that's okay, I don't care. His idea is that he's beaten the angel, and so he's won. He's done what his father wanted him to do. He's succeeded. He feels happy about that because he's essentially trying to still please his father, is how I took that whole situation. And so yeah, this becomes a situation later on whenever Masato is now not yelling at him that he's not fulfilling his duties to fight angels, and he's not even meriting being scolded with Masato, so now he just kind of feels lost again.
I was kind of taking that though more of like he feels like he's in a place where, like, regardless of what he does, he's still needed there, so there's not too much trouble that he can really get into, because at the end of the day they're still going to want him to pilot the mech, so he's just like, whatever, you could be mad at me all you want, but in the end, you're still going to need me to pilot the mech.
Yeah, I can see that side to it as well. That it's more that at that time he thinks that he can do whatever he wants. Effectively, he is the rock star EVA pilot that all the people in school think is the great hero. And now that even Toji is, well, I guess Toji hasn't apologized yet at this point of this situation, right? Or do we? I can't recall what the actual timeline is on that. Because that specifically, I think, is a flashback to Masato talking to him right after the whole events of the last episode of the final battle. So yeah, at that time, then he's just really, Toji and Kensuke were in there seeing him lose his mind, and that's really all that they know.
Do you have anything else, Amanda?
No, that's all I've got for now.
Okay. JC, what do you got for us?
One of the scenes that stuck out to me of Shinji kind of doing his runaway tour of Tokyo 3, he stops by a theater and they're showing a movie about the second impact, and it's an empty theater and people are just like passed out on the floor drunk. There's a couple just making out, and Shinji's just kind of just doesn't lose, but he's just like taken aback watching them just very publicly displaying affection in the middle of this scene where half of humanity is dying and stuff. So it was a stark contrast to show like how normalized something becomes, no matter how devastating it is after just 15 years, that people are just, they're over it. Even though they're in this fortress city of Tokyo 3 that is ostensibly designed to protect against another impact happening again, here we are just don't even really care about things. It's just background noise to them. Gary?
Yeah, I was also like, it harkened back to, if you had to pay attention to the last episode of the teacher explaining the extinction level event, and then you're just like listening to the audio for this movie. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a history movie. This is like a World War II movie in their world. Like, and people are making out during like what is a like world atrocity. Like, people are dying at massive scale. And these people are like, oh, whatever. Like, want to make out? Like, holy shit. Like, or it was just a terrible movie. Who knows? Maybe it's a remake. Maybe they made an original movie like 5 years after, and this is like the remake with some like teen kids. They recast it. Who knows? But it was appalling to me that like this movie that would probably be a lightning rod for society, an event that's a lightning rod for society, and it would be so just boring to them. that they're making out. Steven?
So I don't. While I have other thoughts on the scene as well, I want to agree with the general take that what's going on with a movie and what's going on with the people in the movie theater is supposed to be representative, probably, of the general population at large. And the reason why I say that is we're talking about these two people making out, but the other people that it shows in the movie theater, there's one guy passed out on a couple seats. There's a guy boozing it up with like he has like a full chair, like spread out full chair at the bottom there. There's no one in this movie theater that is there to watch the movie. And it makes me think of that this is probably some 25-cent movie theater where you're not going to watch the movie. If you're going here, you're probably smoking crack in the back, doing heroin in the side, or, messing with your girl on the seats next to you. That's the type of movie theater this is.
Or
Gary?
what if this doesn't cost them anything? What if it's just like public entertainment? It's just like, oh, well, you need entertainment. Like, instead of having a play, like, we'll just show these old movies on Friday. It doesn't cost you anything, but at least you're not out raping and murdering people. You're watching this terrible movie that if half of the world got destroyed, maybe half of cinema got destroyed. And so this is all of the cinema that's left after the apocalypse.
I prefer the bread and games approach to making everyone happy. Thank you.
Okay, whatever. That was all.
That was a history reference. Sorry.
I think he's referring to like gladiators fighting, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, it's bread
Okay.
and games.
I got it.
Too. Coming soon.
I didn't read the book, Steven. Sorry. Back to you, JC.
I did like the scene eventually in Shinji's walkabout. He finds Kensuke playing in the reeds, he's acting military, just by himself, just being both soldier and the dying soldier and his commander, keeping him heroically in the fight. And so he stumbles upon Shinji, and they just he cares for him. He's roughing it as a 14-year-old out in the middle of the nowhere. He's got a whole camp set up, and he's prepared food and stuff like that. And so Shinji sleeps in a tent overnight before NERV finds him in the middle of nowhere and brings him in for the next day. But it was a nice moment with Shinji to actually just feels like finally have a nice human connection for probably the first time this series, where Kensuke is just actually talking to him like a peer in a way that Shinji does not normally get talked to. Gary?
Yeah, I also got the sense that he was like a future indie filmmaker, like trying to make a scene, also the fact that he did really share that he also lost his mom. Was it covered somewhere that he would know that Shinji also lost his mom? That they were both
I
motherless?
didn't catch it. I was wondering. I noticed that too. I was wondering about that.
For somebody who supposedly didn't share very much, usually wouldn't tell anyone that you don't have a mother, or that you work for the government. I feel like on the hierarchy of things you don't talk about on your first day of school, I work for the government. My mother is dead. My father is a recluse. Yeah. Steven?
I also had some notes on this one as well. And first of all, as someone who has played Army out in the middle of nowhere, I entirely understand the fun of what that kid is doing. But that being said, I never went out to play Army and brought with it myself a chalkboard, a submachine gun, and a sniper rifle. There are levels. There are levels here, and I don't know where this kid got the submachine gun and the sniper rifle just chilling out in his freaking tent.
I think they're plastic, though. I think he
Toys?
mentioned
Are
some
they
plastic
toys or
weapons.
are they
That's what I
real?
assumed. Or Steven just needs to up his level.
That's true.
Right.
That was
But-
actually when I originally saw it, before Shinji walks in. I assumed he was playing with, live firearms in his little one-act play there. I'm like, oh, maybe he's a little crazy.
Yeah, I guess I didn't hear or see anything to indicate that they were plastic. So I don't know there, but
I just assumed, yeah.
I guess I wouldn't assume because if
I
mean, they're-
swore he mentioned that they were
Did he?
plastic weapons.
No, you're right.
Okay.
He did.
Did he? Okay.
I forgot. Nice remembering.
But yeah, I also did like the point where he's talking and it's yeah, my mom's dead or my mom's gone too or dead too, however he says it. And it's just so the implication, we're besties now. Don't worry about it. It's like, all
Dead
right,
Mom Club.
that's
Did we just
Yep.
become best friends?
did we just become best friends? I think it does show Shinji that, hey, maybe you're not entirely alone in the world. And to Shinji himself, shows Shinji you're not entirely alone in the world because he's been making it out to be no one knows what I'm going through. No one understands what I have to go through. And to an extent, he's right. Meeting someone who does have a similarity to him helps him connect.
Those are the critical points that I wanted to make sure to stand out, and I've got some other smaller points if we end up hitting some of the topics later.
All right. Steven.
So following that exact scene right there, NERV's weird. NERV acts like weirdos. Just
Yeah.
5 men with just black suits and guns surround a goddamn kid's tent and take him back. Like it was pretty intense. I also kind of wonder how they followed him. Like, do they have a tracker on him, or do they have satellite coverage of the entire area? What's going on there? Who knows? They don't explain that. But then when Shinji gets back, obviously he has another. It's not a fight, but it's a talk with Masato, and he gets upset. I mentioned that he gets upset that Masato is not angry with him or not telling him off. He's not angry about running away. He wants Masato, it feels like, to be a stand-in mom or someone who cares about him, family, and that's just not what Masato's there for, and causes him to kind of run away. But then they're not run away, but quit basically. And then they start talking. It's Shinji's dad and the scientist whose name I will never remember. Will never remember her name.
Ritsuko.
Yep, not going to remember that. But they mention that they have a third kid, a third children is how it says it in the subtitles on Netflix, by the way. And they have not located the fourth children yet. So it's interesting. What do they mean by they have located the third children? Located? Like, are there a set number of children around in this world?
I noticed that too, Steven. I forgot to write it down, but I was curious about the two. Like, it sounds either because there's obviously other 14-year-olds. So, and we never assumed that just anyone could get in one of these things and pilot it. So I wonder what they're looking for specifically.
Like, do they reference the Malduk Institute? Is that what it is? Because I know
Yes, they do.
it was episode 1 or 2. We had that reference to there as well. That he's the third children as determined by the Malduk Institute. And now here we are referencing the third children again, and now fourth children. And yeah, the specific usage of children in that thing is a very supposedly in the first translation. I'm not sure if Shotzi, if you're watching it dubbed on your copy, are they saying children or kids there?
I can't remember. I always thought it was like child or something like that, but it could be
Yeah.
children.
I was thinking that was what I recall the translation thing being. When they first translated it for the dub, then they actually anglicized it to third child, fourth child, and then for whatever reason Netflix, they decided to put it back to the more direct translation of children. So it always stands out as being a very weird turn of phrase. It just kind of makes you kind of cock your head a little bit and try and figure out what exactly is going on as soon as they say it.
It brings attention to it. It makes you think.
Yeah.
And then the last part of this episode is obviously Shinji trying to quit. Gets brought to the train station, the maglev station. I wanted to point out that they have maglevs. Kind of cool. We still don't have maglevs, but they have maglevs in this dystopia of a world, whatever. and his two friends are waiting there for him to say, hey, you know what? We understand what you went through. We understand what you have to go through. We don't blame you for quitting, and we're happy that you were here. And you could see it affect Shinji. Like, he has no idea what to say. He's being thanked very graciously. He's not being treated like a hero. He's being thanked and being understood. And I think that I do think that affects him. And then he obviously walks over to the train and pulls that little nice train stunt that everyone does. But and Misato also, while she's talking to some people, realizes, oh crap, I need to actually be nice to Shinji, or actually be a family to Shinji, and pulls a Misato and just drives like a crazy person as fast as she can to the train station, barely missing the train. She thinks that she missed it, and then, as all great cinema does, the train pulls away. Shinji's not there, but then you pan the can over, and Shinji's there. So they we get a very awkward, I feel like, long moment of them just looking at each other, trying to understand what to say next, what to do next. They may have come to the conclusion in their head that they need to stay, or they need to maybe understand one another better, but they don't know how to externalize that yet. So, Gary?
I thought that scene hung way too long, with no motion in the frame. Like, it was literally a static image for 30 seconds, no audio. Like, your computer could have locked up, your whatever viewing device could have locked up, and you would not have known.
Yeah, you had audio. You had the train thing going. You had an announcement
Maybe
that
there
the
was some
train was
audio.
coming in.
Back. There was some audio, but it was just a static image. And it was very, very, like, you can't do anything more. You can't have the little guy on the train hop up and down and like move to the left. You can't have the character in the foreground like walk towards the train. Like, no, just a static effing image for like 30 seconds. And then it was like, oh, you decided to come back. And it's just like, that's how you want to end an episode? Gosh, you guys suck at storytelling.
Counterpoint. I read that as being just like them both just, they see each other there, and then it's that static thing. It just pauses there because they're both just trying to figure out, like, okay, are we actually doing this? Is this really? They're both unsure about what they're both trying to do, because even like Shinji's going back to the way the synopsis pinned it earlier. Just get my notes back. Sorry. At the last minute, both Shinji and Misato have an epiphany that gives them a deeper understanding of each other. I didn't read the situation like that. Misato, when talking to Ritsuko, suddenly goes like, oh, hedgehogs, I get it. And so that's her epiphany about why Shinji is prickly and is scared of being hurt. But Shinji, in the middle of talking with Toji and Kensuke, he's just suddenly, like, after that, realizes, like, no, like, I'm the one who should be beat up because I'm a coward. I'm a weakling. I'm like, he just is just dragging himself down. Like, to me, that's just showing that, like, yeah, he is running away, but like, this isn't necessarily, he's not coming at it from a healthy place to me, that this is his destiny and he can do good for people or anything like that. He's just like, no, I'm a coward. I'm running away. I shouldn't be running away because that's what cowards do. And to me, that, like, this isn't necessarily a happy ending here that Shinji is stuck around for this scene. Tyler?
Yeah, I guess I really didn't read either of those options into that. It just felt like a weird scene of just like, okay, are they going to say anything? Anything going to happen? Nope. Okay, the scene's over. So it felt like more. It felt like one of those things. Like, had it been me, could have been cut a little bit or something else put in there, but it was just like a setup for what's to come next. Then, too. So it didn't. An American version of it wouldn't have been that long, I guess, if I just pan right there.
Yeah, way too long. I honestly, the previously thinking that he blacked out on the train, or he like his mentally froze, like, that's what I thought happened in this scene. He didn't have an epiphany. He literally was in such an emotional dilemma that he could not move. He was frozen, and he forgot to get on the effing train. Like, it's not explained. It cuts to credits. I just assumed he has seizures and he blacks out. It's not explained yet, so my theory can still be true. Stephen?
True, I guess. Yeah, I'm with JC on this one. I feel like it is a moment to let the viewer know that they don't know what they're doing. It is awkward. It is kind of strange for the viewer to see because we're used to witty one-liners being flung at everyone everywhere, and this is not what it is. It is a moment of understanding, and then the thing that they come to is welcome home, and what does Shinji say back? It is
Shinji says, "I'm home," and Masato says, "Welcome back."
there you go, welcome home, or I'm home, welcome back, which is what they say when Shinji had an issue crossing over the threshold to her apartment earlier. It is that acceptance of family, that acceptance that he belongs. And I believe that phrase has a lot more meaning in this TV show than we might be giving it credit for.
I was going to bring up those specific closing words as well, because it was that callback to whenever he first tried to identify himself as part of a family unit there. But to me, it almost rings a little more hollow now as well, to lend more credence to the fact that this is not necessarily a happy ending. Because at first, he walks through the threshold of Misato's apartment and says, like, "I'm home." And you think, oh, good, this kid's got a family now. This is going to be a great time for him. And we learned that it's not a great time for him. And now here he is again. I'm home. So we're hoping it's going to work out for him. But history so far is not on his side.
All right. I don't even know where we started with all of that last set of questioning there. Who that was?
That was me, and
Okay.
I basically just took it to the end from where we found Shinji.
Okay. Gary, I think you might be the last one for this episode. Any questions?
Yay!
Thoughts?
I honestly noticed a lot more, as the show is based in Japan, I noticed a lot more English in the background of this episode. And maybe it was probably explained, but NERV is always on the wall in English. NERV. The tough kid, already forgotten his name. He has a Fila on his shirt, and I had to look up. Fila is a South Korean athleisure brand. Just one of those things where obviously in the 90s, what do you choose to actually have as brand in a show? And it's like Fila. I don't know. That was just weird to me. Also, on the wall, I think it's when he finally decides to quit. On the wall, it says, "God's in his," and then like the bottom half of the seal is obscured in a shadow. And I was like, okay, so there's English on the walls so there's NERV, like an English based or English speaking unit that just exists in Tokyo 1. Steven?
English is a ubiquitous language. People use it all over the world all the time. It's not super, and Japan and the United States are pretty good allies. It's not inconceivable that you would have a lot of English speaking things, especially when you're talking about like secret society sort of crap. Of course, there's going to be like in a lot of Japanese anime, if you have like a secret bad-ish secret society or a nefarious sort of secret society, they probably have U.S. backing of some kind.
They're American.
Yeah, they're probably going to be American. We're a great stand-in for being nefarious evildoers. But I also wanted to point out
U.S. media, where it's always Mexico or South American countries that are.
I would say in U.S. media it's always Russians, but regardless, yes,
I think
we
the
have
enemy
other.
changes for the U.S. media depending on who the bad guy is of the time.
I always think about. Sorry, I just come to mind of Ubisoft games where they pointed out that it's always
drug lords and stuff. Yeah,
it's always drug lords in Mexico. Anyway, sorry, Steven, continue.
The second thing I want to point out is that Fila is a very well-known international sports brand that similar to Nike. So not inconceivable that would be there.
Inconceivable.
Inconceivable.
The full tagline, I mentioned it with episode 1. We get to see it in full. God's in his heaven, all's right with the world. And it ends up being, so Special Agency NERV is, we've learned, a secret agency operating under the UN. So it is a UN operation, so it's not necessarily fully Japanese. So it would make sense to me that like there is more multilingual aspects going on. And I don't know if it's necessarily referenced in the show much. It's not a pivotal point if so, but NERV is the German word for just nerve. It's like a nerve in your brain, body, etc. So that's just,
Okay,
it's a
repeat
German
that.
word.
God's in his heaven.
All's right with the world. It's
Oh.
it's from a poem apparently. If you look it up, it's basically the idea is that there's this girl going through the world and everything is terrible, but she has this fun little song. It ends with the line, "God's in his heaven, all's right with the world," even though she's seeing all of this terror and tragedy around her. So a fun tagline for the organization.
Thank you. I learned something new. I'll
Man.
forget it by tomorrow, but I learned
no
something
worries.
new. Stephen?
I did want to point out that just one more, this is a general anime thing as well. Japanese anime does have a little bit of an infatuation with German and German culture. If you have like a magic system, like I would say like Bleach has this. A lot of the, like how we have magic words in Latin, theirs will be in German. It's just something I've noticed over the years. It doesn't play a huge role in a whole bunch of things, but like Full Metal Alchemist, one of the, not Brotherhood, but the regular one, when they go to an alternate universe, it's a Germany universe, which Full Metal Alchemist takes place in a quasi-Germany anyways, so there's just a lot of, the German references are on brand.
Backing up, is bleach the name of a show? A cleaning
Yes.
material? Like, I know it's a cleaning material. It was like, oh yeah, they reference this in Bleach, and I'm like,
Sorry, Bleach is an anime. Bleach is an anime. Like Naruto or something.
Oh, I've heard of
And
that.
not-
I've never heard of Bleach, and when you name drop Bleach in the middle of a sentence, it's.
I apologize. You're right. I
forget
didn't
it.
think about that.
For context, please, if you could reference how many times German is used in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Pokemon, that would be great.
Yes. Now I want to watch a clip of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles speaking German. So you're welcome.
Oh, Banga, ja.
Uns ja, es ist gut. Ja, sehr gut.
All right. Did we cover everybody's points there? We good to wrap up this episode? Getting a lot of head nods, thumbs up from Steven. All right, JC, what are we going to be watching? It sounds like we're going to be changing it up slightly here. You and Steven have had a discussion about the number of episodes we might be watching here. So what do we got for next time?
We still managed to almost hit 2 hours, I think, by the time we discuss these 2 episodes. But yeah, we're gonna brave ourselves here and go for 3 episodes on this next one. That'll be episode 5, Ray Beyond the Heart, or Ray 1, Showdown in Tokyo 3, or Ray 2, and episode 7, The Works of Man, or A Human Work. So 3 episodes, episodes 5 through 7 for the next podcast.
Okay. Steven is just continuing to nod his head enthusiastically.
I am.
We have gone through, and Steven and I have, as the people who have seen the show before, we've got kind of a list prepared here of, I think there will be,
Yep.
I could pull it up, but it's a couple 3-episode chunks, and then once we get to a few more plot-dense episodes, we're going to slow it back down to 2 episodes per, and that way we don't necessarily try and cram too much into a single podcast sitting.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yes. Yep.
Well, that'll probably then do us for this episode here. Again, as mentioned, 5, 6, and 7 are next up. So thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.